And in other news, 7 in 10 Australians say that the country doesn't need more migrants, according to a new survey from ANU. The high cost of housing, overcrowding in major cities and job security were among the most commonly cited reasons.
For tonight's Taking Stock, we're joined by John Winning, CEO of Winning Group and founder of Appliances Online. We've also got Shane Oliver, Chief Economist and Head of Investment Strategy at AMP Capital with us. Gentlemen, welcome so much to the program. Welcome. What do you think the reasons behind the decrease in the support for more migrants coming to Australia? Because it has seen about a 15% drop in support since 2010.
Well, for sure, I think that, you say that we don't need more migrants, and I would agree. I don't think we need more migrants, but equally I think that if there's more and more people that are wanting to come to Australia, that's a different story. From a business perspective, obviously more people means more business, and that's great. However, I don't think it's going to change anyone's business or make any struggling Australian businesses survive if the migration rate goes up slightly or decreases slightly. I think from a global perspective, I hold a personal view. I think we're overpopulated, but you can't affect that being an Australian. And I think that, we generally have somewhat duty of care to humanity of taking on migrants that might be in need.
Interesting. So you don't see this as necessarily an issue that would affect your business and therefore you think a lot about? And
I don't think it's going to make a strategic change to the way we do business, whether there's a few more people. I mean, it's not like they're talking about an influx of 5 million people to the population. It's going to be a small number on my market share, which is also going to be, small in the scheme of things. So unless you are Woolworths or Coles and you're absolutely got a saturation or a significant chunk of the Australian population, then maybe that slight change can still be a significant number to your P&L. But for a business like mine and 99 point whatever Australian businesses, there's no way that's going to be a significant make or break to whether you're successful or not.
Shane, what do you think? This is a major economic issue too, right?
It certainly is. Obviously, high immigration, high population growth has been one factor behind Australia not having a recession for whatever it is, 28 years or something like that. But at the end of the day, as an economist, I have to also say that it's each individual's living standard that matters. Just having more people in Australia won't necessarily improve my lot. And I think what's happened, as you pointed out there, that poorer housing affordability, infrastructure congestion, and that's what's working against it here. Generally, Australians have been quite welcoming of immigrants, and we have a history of doing that over a long, long period. There is that issue there, how you phrased the question here, do we need more? I would say, well, we probably don't. But in the great scheme of things, we have had a history of high immigration levels. But the problem is that the recent step up in immigration levels that occurred roughly starting around the middle of last decade, we jumped from a population growth of just over 200,000 to suddenly over 350,000 starting around the middle of last decade. That has not been matched by infrastructure, not been matched by housing. So you can understand why Australians are less supportive of immigration tn they were, say, back in 2010.
Yeah, it's kind of like, let's talk about more migrants when you tell us what the plan is, when you tell us how you're going to
And many Australians, if you're living in Sydney and Melbourne, you can't see the plan. It takes me 10 minutes to get to work. Now, admittedly, I live a fair way away from work, but it used to take me, say, an hour and 5. Now it takes me an hour and 15. And, of course, a big chunk of the reason for that is more congestion on the road, which is due to more people. I don't take it against those other people. I just think that it could be managed better. We're jamming something like 60% of the immigrants that come to Australia go to Sydney and Melbourne, whereas those two centres are only 40% of the total Australian population. We need a bit of distribution. We need to make it more attractive for newcomers to the country to go elsewhere to build out the rest of Australia, not just Sydney and Melbourne.
Speaking of lack of political vision, we've seen just a few hours after Clive Palmer's Mario Brothers style game came out that he landed himself in hot water, and believe it or not, it was with Boy George's magic. The argument was that the billionaire politician's use of Karma Chameleon is clear copyright infringement. We had a bit of a preview of this Mario Brothers style game yesterday. We'll continue to show that through the evening today. There it is. Look, does it bother you guys that this is today's big political story? What do we think? I mean, one big question I think is why on earth is he spending so much money when everyone reckons he's got Buckleys of actually going anywhere in the election?
Everyone thought Trump wouldn't get in as well, and I think that unfortunately when you look at what's happening globally and it becomes, who's the biggest or probably reach in social media and less about the political views and more about do I like you, do I know you?
Yeah.
I think that political, sort of the political structure in Australia and globally probably needs a bit of a check.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that happen in America. I hope the same doesn't happen in Australia. But unfortunately, he's probably just running the same race that he saw win a couple of years ago over in the US.
But so, John, as a sort of a businessman, somebody who's got a lot on their plate and dealing with a lot of the big issues in Australia, does it bother you at all that they're not really talking about that? We're stuck talking about Clive Palmer's
I think it's a
fun
joke.
games that
I think it's a joke, and I'm not very happy about it. But unfortunately, I think that you know, when you look at society and what's going on, I think that the way that we live, you know, on our phones, on social media, we used to consume a reasonable amount of content, and I would say that probably a good percentage of our time in front of a television screen would have been watching the news. Now I think that's watching cat videos and silly other videos that your
Clive
friends
Palmer
are sharing,
games
or a Clive Palmer game, or what rant is Trump having on Twitter at the moment. And I think it's a wider issue more than just political.
Totally, and we talked about, I mean, perfect example, we talked about the egg earlier.
Oh, absolutely. Got to be talking about the egg.
Stupid story about the egg that became the most
40 million
photo
likes,
on
like
Instagram or something. Anyway, it's part of the same story. You'll see a bit later in the replay of the show. But
well,
yeah.
that's right. So it's a bit sad that I'm asking Shane Oliver what he thinks about Clive Palmer's game, but I'm kind of curious. This is taken on a bit of a big headline now. What do you think?
Well, I'd agree with John. It is a bit of a joke. It is a bit sad, but that's the way the world's gone. We have a capacity to take on all this stuff now, and we're absorbing it. I think, though, and I have a little bit of confidence in my fellow Australians, that we'll make reasonably sensible decisions come election day, whenever that is, in May, most probably.
Fingers crossed.
Unlike the Americans, you could argue, where you can question their decision. Actually, most Americans actually voted for Hillary Clinton. She got a majority, but the system worked out.
That's old news,
over
Shane.
Trump. But I can understand. It is old news. I don't want to keep pushing that.
I know.
But I can understand why they voted that way, but I wouldn't understand it in Australia, and I don't think that Clive Palmer has the ability to do what a Trump did. It's probably a lot easier to do that in the American system, where they're all voting for Hillary or Trump. In Australia, you're voting for lots of individual representatives across lots of seats around the country, and that makes it a lot harder to get over the line and to win like Trump did in Australia. So I think hopefully common sense will prevail, but time will tell.
It's been an effective strategy if getting headlines and distracting people was the goal.
Spent 2 full days on it.
Exactly.
So,
now, another story that's doing the rounds. Question here. Have you ever tossed a coin into Trevi Fountain in Rome? Well, did you know that nearly $5,000 worth of coins end up in that famous fountain every day? And for 20 years, the nearly $2.5 million annually that's been cleared out has been given to charity. But the city recently revealed that it was thinking of keeping the money itself, just to spend on Rome around the trap. So I suppose the question here is, do you think that people ever really think about where their money goes when they do something like this, when they throw it into the fountain? What do you think?
I think that they absolutely have no idea where it goes. I don't think they. I don't think they think. I have tossed a coin in. I don't think they think or care where it goes at the time. I think they're tossing it in because they want to make a wish, or, you know, of being able to say, well, probably in today's age, to get to the last point, they probably want an Instagram photo. Or add it to their story that they threw a coin in. But then, you know, the wider picture, when you do sit back and you realise that it is a large sum of money, I think that the causes that it's been going to sound like quite reasonable causes, and I don't think just because, you know, the local council might not have enough funds to clean the streets because of other issues, I don't think that the fountain's going to save the day there, and I see no reason to change
It's been given to a Catholic Church charity, and the Catholic Church was the one that kicked up the whole storm over this whole thing. I did think, like, well, the Catholic Church has got a lot of money.
Yes.
You know, I feel
I'm with you on that one to a degree.
Saying, like, don't take money from us. I mean, that was my view. But I mean, there was a view from the city mayor. They've got to clean the fountains, they've got to maintain them, they've got a whole city to maintain. I think there's a bit of worry there that maybe there's been, some corruption or mismanagement at the very least. So perhaps that That's why they don't want the city to have any more money. So there's a whole backstory there. But
there is a bunch of issues around this, and apparently they're having trouble collecting garbage in Rome or something like that.
Exactly.
So the city is under pressure. Interestingly, Virginia Ruggie, and I hope I pronounced her right, she is it was a five-star movement. She was one of the first politicians to succeed with the five-star movement.
And she's the mayor there now.
So she's the mayor. There has been a bit of controversy around initially when she took over. But I must admit, I was there 2 years ago and I threw some money in the Trevi Fountain and sort of wondered where it went to. I did hope that it goes to charity, and this has confirmed that at least it is. But I can also understand if a council is administering the thing, that they may consider at various points in time what is the best use for that money. And obviously they also have to maintain the city. So it's reasonable to have that debate, even though at a very simplistic level you can say it's always best to give it to to homeless people, but it has to be spent on something.
I agree 100%. I think it's a reasonable question for sure. But
you've always got to ask where the money's going, right?
For sure. And then it's easy to say charity, and then it's like, okay, well, how much of that money is going to charity? What charity exactly?
You wonder if, I mean, maybe it's totally impractical to give people a choice, but I do think of, and this is possibly a weird connection here to make.
Such a fair guy,
but
you can allocate.
Look, I've got an idea here. Okay. So you go to, this is weird, right? So you go to Grilled, and when you order your food, you get a couple of tokens, and then you take your tokens over to this side where they have a few different options of which charity you want to support. You put it in there, right?
Maybe different parts of the fountain.
What if at Trevi Fountain there was zones? You throw your coin into this zone, it goes there.
And the people would speak, right?
There you go, then the people would...
The ones that are paying the money get to speak.
Not a bad idea.
I really like that idea.
Thank you very much, John.
They only turned up in order to get a photo for Instagram.
I know, that's a good point.
You guys.
And it's so packed there that you take your little spot.
You want your charity or your I guess your cause to be the one that has the best angle for the photo of this lighting.
Okay, that's it. It's
but then you have spruikers around saying, give money to our charity.
Well, that's true.
That's true. Give us your pitch.
Okay, it's falling apart.
There is a funny end to the story in that there was so much backlash from this mayor, apparently. This came in later today that we saw. There was so much backlash for this. The mayor who said that they were going to kind of redistribute the funds, that she ended up saying, no, it's all going to go to charity. And actually, she kind of doubled down and said, all the fountains all over the city that get money, but that'll all go to charity as well. In fact, in her panic, they've gone completely backwards.
She gave into social media.
Gave into social media, and there we are,
More
starting.
rubbish on the streets.
And that conversation comes full circle right there. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks so much.
John Winning, thank you very much, guys.